Okay, so what I am reading today is a piece titled "The Jewish Question." Uh, it's by Bruno Rizzi. This is a section, I believe. I haven't read it, but I think it'll become apparent. This is a section, I believe, from Bruno Rizzi's book, "The Bureaucratization of the World." Only the first part of this book was translated into English and was published in the I guess in I don't know, maybe it was in Britain, or I'm not sure, but it was in the Anglo-speaking world. This book was published in the 1980s, 1985, but only the first part, and the other parts left out um, elaborated on Rizzi's theory, where Rizzi elaborated on his theory of the bureaucratization of the world and his support for his advocacy of fascism and Stalinism as leading to a new higher form of civilization based upon collectivized property is it was left out of the translation because only the first part was published. Then there was some very positive book reviews as well as obituaries for Bruno Rizzi. Um, that when he died, and also when this book was published in English. I'm not sure when Rizzi died, and there was kind of like a controversy uh, in this in the I wouldn't say the left generally, because how many people not don't know who Bruno Rizzi is, but in the academic world, at least in the academic left wing space, among a very small group of intellectuals, there's a lot of controversy about this because a lot of the obituaries were kind of like adulatory and celebrating Bruno Rizzi, um, totally leaving out the more the his actual anti-democratic, anti-socialist politics, or rather anti-democratic, pro-fascist, pro-Stalinist uh, uh, conceptions that these societies would be the intermediary transitional society between capitalism and socialism. Uh, he had the idea that support needed to be lent to these projects because they were overcoming the inefficiencies of the capitalist mode of production and thus were laying the groundwork for a superior form of society. Um, so there's a lot of outcry about, between by people like Ernest Haberkern and a guy named Frank Adler who actually introduces this piece. I have the introduction on this channel already. It's called Rizzi's Honor. Um, and that were saying like, why the hell are people celebrating this guy? They're completely ignorant about his politics. Frank Adler in his introduction, which I'm not going to reproduce here, I was just listening to it though, off my channel, and it said he was saying that when he first saw Haberkern's review, he was like, "This is like so scathing. Like this can't possibly be true." Uh, but Haberkern then sent him like a document, parts of the original bureaucratization of the world, and found out that Haberkern was not being full of shit. And so he republished this part of the bureaucratization of the world here. I believe it's part of bureaucratization of the world. I don't believe it's a separate piece. Um, and to like demonstrate that this guy was indeed pro-totalitarian uh, and anti-Semitic as well, viewing capitalism as a sort of Jewish conspiracy. Um, so let's proceed. So Bruno Rizzi, the Jewish question. I'm reading this, and again, I should be say that I'm reading this for as a reference. Okay, so I'm not endorsing the ideas that are here. Not that I should be you should necessarily view me as endorsing necessarily any of the ideas that I put up on here. But I hope that my political biases are clear enough where people won't be um, mistaken that I'm putting this up um, uh, in sympathy. Anyway, so here the footnote says, originally published in the 1939 edition of Le Bureaucratisation du Monde as an appendix to Chapter 4, La Question Juive. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the Jewish question. Translated by Frank Adler. Also, if I haven't said this, I didn't say this already, it was said in the Adler introduction. But this book was impounded by the Popular Front government and banned by the Popular Front government on the grounds of its anti-Semitism. Which is something that perhaps, I'm not sure, perhaps the Popular Front government would have been especially sensitive to, since Leon Blum, the leader of France at that time, was a Jewish man. But I don't know. So here we go. Quote, Trotsky had to succumb in his political struggle against Stalin, as had the old guard, and also as the Jews must succumb under the dictators. Why? The Marxist Trotsky had the duty to explain this to us, end quote. I'm not sure that quote's from him. I guess that might be just an excerpt from the piece in general. But let's see. In part one of his The Dusk of Civilization, Arturo Labriola doubts the fact that races are historical creations. We believe this is precisely what is in question, and take the opportunity to pay tribute to the multifaceted, disorderly yet genial notions of this thinker. All the racist theories of Rosenberg, Hitler, Italian racists, etc., cannot withstand the weakest blows of science. Questions of blood, origin, etc., are nothing but empty words in our modest opinion. Nevertheless, it is a fact that the inhabitants of the world differentiate themselves through particular characteristics, physical type, appearance, religion, morality, ethics, economics, in different categories. Within each one of these, such characteristics reveal an affinity. In our opinion, the two great determining factors of race characteristics are represented by the climatological and social ambiance. The last centuries of our history have divided populations according to national characteristics. The bourgeois nation has been the base on which populations have taken on today's predominant characteristics. The Italian fascists, in the act of saying many erroneous things on the racial problem, have arrived at the conclusion, we might rather say, the prophecy, that there exists an Italian race. We believe their point of view is just and exact. We believe the fascists' point of view is just and exact. More and more, North and South blend in the Italian peninsula, leading to the creation of a unique type of Italian. We believe one could observe the same process, even more advanced, in France, Germany, England, the United States, etc. We repeat that for us, the so-called races are nothing other than historical formations emerging from the social and climatological ambiance in a politically intercommunicating circle, that is to say, one in which the members are assembled and bound by social relations. We have not yet arrived at the formation of a standardized national type, yet already economic development necessitates an enlargement of the national base. It appears to us that the bases are existing today, arriving at a fusion among those most closely situated, and on the base of these fusions, one will proceed to new discrimination between races. To a new discrimination between races. Excuse me. One will proceed to a new discrimination between the races. Christ on the cross, I can't speak. Given that economic development is the predominant factor at the time when great new political unities are formed, where it is necessary, affinities of a racial character must be sacrificed to economic necessity. Nevertheless, we believe that in practice such cases will be easily resolved, because in the world there is so much space hardly touched. We believe that our planet will be divided into a small number of political unities around a leading central core. We will have a Latino-Mediterranean unity, a German unity, a Salvo-Siberian unity, a Yellow unity led by Japan, an Indian unity, and a North American Anglo-Saxon unity. There will be more or less 7 or 8 politico-economic unities to which will be attributed the natural resources of the world in proportion to the number of inhabitants and the capacity for exploitation. In the general interest, all should work in the most rational and profitable manner. A great exchange of products will be necessary and profitable between the new politico-economic unities. Evidently, it would be useless to have Indians manufacture watches when Indians could render much greater service to the human community, producing basic and commonly used products. We would like to speak of the Jewish question, and with our customary frankness, stripped of all prejudice, expose our point of view, submitting it simply to the scrutiny of proletarian thought to be discussed and resolved. Our only aim is thus to pose these problems which we are convinced the workers cannot ignore at this moment of their revolution. The Jews have no national base, but incontestably form a nation. We shall say fluid. Shall we say fluid? The Jews' social, religious, economic, etc. attachments pass above all the boundaries and succeed in maintaining a social unity which we believe cannot be placed in doubt. For reasons which are particular to the Jews appear as the most jealously racist nation in the world, and they have even had the pretension of being more intelligent than the others. Sounds like something Norman Finkelstein would say. We believe that even what we are going to say will seem straightforward to any objective observer. Originally, they were a people of shepherds and farmers, but they were dispersed throughout the world, where they abandoned themselves solely to trade, speculation, finance, banking, insurance, etc. In a word, they are capitalists for the most part. We have seen very few Jewish workers, and these, for us, are not Jews, but simply workers. Economic development for the past 2,000 years has found the Jews in a socially rich position, which became even more so during the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. The 19th century represents, for the people of Israel, an absolute delirium of riches, and the statistics on private wealth are there to furnish all the evidence. In France alone, where national wealth was estimated to be around a trillion, 3/4 belonged to only 2,000 Jews. We are not here to make accusations of original sin against the Jewish people. We only make statement of fact, and must conclude that the struggle against capitalism must be identified, even if only partially, with the struggle against the Jewish people. We could give numerous examples coming from Jews themselves, but one will suffice. Recently, the great Einstein intuitively advised his Jewish compatriots to give unlimited support to England, that England which represents the oldest and most oppressive capitalism. To say no more, where the proletariat itself is spoiled to the bone by capitalism. Let the workers of the world remember that one time when English workers decided to call a general strike, the English workers took this so seriously that, quote, sportingly, they arranged a football match between the strikers and the police, ! This simple fact is more than significant, but we could cite examples in abundance, even of a personal nature. Let the workers and their revolutionary avant-garde think a bit about this. They will see that they cannot put aside the Jewish question, and perhaps the fact that this was never dealt with admits a bit of that opportunism which was always at the base of the European labor movement. We Marxists never made an anti-Jewish campaign because we included the Jews in the capitalists. We Marxists never made an anti-Jewish campaign because we included the Jews in the capitalists. We are still at the same point, but since the moment has come to dismantle the capitalist world, the question cannot remain in the shadows, and we must undertake en masse an anti-Jewish campaign, because the Jews and capitalists generally are one and the same thing. The racist struggles of National Socialism and Fascism fundamentally are nothing but an anti-capitalist campaign led by a new social synthesis, theoretically erroneous but practically just. The action, blind as always, of the new ruling class turns out to be more correct than the enlightened actions of the social antithesis. Hitler is right and we are wrong. We must correct ourselves and become anti-Jewish because we are anti-capitalists. The anti-Jewish, quote, pogrom, which inexorably and progressively is beginning to occur throughout the entire world, does not issue forth from nothing, not even from the limited depth of racial knowledge advanced by self-styled racists. We usually laugh at the theoretical reasons behind German racism, but our duty is to study the problem in depth to discover what lies underneath. We do this because usually nothing truly important takes place in the world without reason, even if the theoretical explanations used to account for such phenomena may be classified among the most absurd. We would find that history has already overtaken us, as we remarked to Comrade Trotsky in December 1938 regarding the disappearance of private property. Yet it must be openly admitted. Yes, it must be openly admitted. It is a disgrace, but one must say it. It is not we, the social antithesis, who will completely overturn the old dominant capitalist class, but the new synthesis, a dominant class of the next society, as yet unformed, which struggles blindly on the social battlefield, like the useless havoc made by Polyphemus, blinded by Ulysses. But the path to the new society is opened, while the social antithesis, supreme disgrace, hides behind the back of the old decrepit dominant class. Get out from behind this vile defense. Leave, enlighten the blind force of the new ruling class, ally yourself with it and fight. Comrades, workers, you represent social thought, which draws its origin from labor. When one tells you to be anti-Jewish, one is not proposing, quote, pogroms, for that is the means appropriate for the blind brutality of dominant classes. You are capital T thought, capital T HOUGHT, the wheel which moves history, the active social part which presses and rubs against the fixed social part represented by the ruling class. You are humane and identify yourselves with humanity. You do not needlessly dirty yourself with the blood of your brothers. We are all brothers, but for particular reasons of historical development, your Jewish brothers have, in the great majority, become corrupt. What can be morally said about a people who notoriously and continuously through centuries have lived off the labor of others, plundered its own, strangling while buying, in order later to betray while reselling? What refuse of humanity can a people become who for centuries, from father to son, lived only to accumulate riches, invent the most adroit and immoral means to rob, betray, and swindle its own? You will tell us that all capitalists act this way too, and you will be right. In England especially, where capitalism is the elder, the capitalist is very close to the Jew. But in the rest of the world, the Jew has over the normal capitalist the, quote, advantage of atavistic qualities. In Italy, especially, there never was a Jewish question, and we never knew effectively what a Jew was, even when with whip in hand you were made to work. Well, the German anti-Jewish movement, and later the Italian anti-Jewish movement too, has drawn our attention. Our eyes have been opened. All the veils are ripped to shreds. Under the good race, the courtesy, the humility, and the servility of the Jews is hidden all the dirt that a people of thieves and money maniacs could accumulate with constant practice and for atavistic reasons. In their search of gold, they have sacrificed all moral virtues. They have become the Machiavellians of the blonde metal. The end justifies the means, as long as the Jews gather coins. The Jews even lost all respect for themselves and for humanity in general. Incapable of pride, the Jews are lost in pettiness, and the pettiness is so miserable that it is hard to believe they do it seriously, but they speculate even on that. There is no need to go into further detail. It is enough that everyone observes and searches into their recollections. We consider the Jews as victims, as social outcasts. They have succeeded in becoming an integral part of the dirty scum into which every ruling class transforms itself at the moment of its historical decline. With high rollers, ruffians, and gamblers, they live the last historical moments of their social life. We are, however, witnessing this historical decline, and the scum of a ruling class which is decomposing must not have contacts with the proletarian antithesis, especially outside of the levers of control. For us, the Jews represent an unhappy historical formation, rotten for atavistic reasons, and also because of their practice in the organized exploitation of a society which is vulgarly exploitative. They should have no directing role, a role not made for them, in the new society which shall have large, Fortean, and non-speculative conceptions. Maybe the conditions of Stalinism are worse than they should be really because of their wide scope. The Jew is accustomed to exploiting and not creating. It is logical that once placed at the levers of command, he very naturally glides towards forms of speculation and exploitation. The social synthesis has already rejected the Jew from its bosom. Workers, would you like to give him asylum, you? But you already gave him asylum for a long time. Chase the Jew away. We do not want to hurt our Jewish outcast brothers. We only want our Jewish outcast brothers' redemption, and this redemption our Jewish outcast brothers will only find in work. The Nazi and fascist movements which, while not being Marxist, have, however, for a long time been by nature anti-capitalist, manifest in a subconscious manner their anti-capitalism through their struggle against Israel. We Marxists can see more clearly by including anti-Judaism in anti-capitalism. This proves once more that proletarians are dictators. This proves once more that proletarians and dictators are placed historically, one beside the other, in the struggle against capital. This proves that for years we have been fighting one another, spitting in each other's face, but for the same end. This proves that it is time to end this business and to recognize the identical role history is imposing on us and to die together if necessary. We have laughed at racist theories, but Hitler was right, and there may be someone too intelligent, especially a Jew, who will want to laugh at us suddenly becoming anti-Jews, while remaining faithful disciples of Marx and Trotsky, both of whom were Jews! Point. The fact is comical, but in this historical moment everything is comical, and at the same time extremely logical. It is comical that Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and the workers of the world hold hands, but it is extremely logical. It is a condition imposed by history without the possibility of beating around the bush. The new world is born, everything is clear, and all sins are absolved. We have considered the Jewish people as a group, as an actual economic formation, and as an integral part of the enemy army. There are no rules without exceptions, and we will make some. However, the proletarians should be careful not to fall into the trap of exceptions, such that exceptions are then transformed into rules. Proletarians should have no hatred for their neighbors, the Jewish workers, with whom they will be able, and even will have to be ready, to intermarry in order to regenerate them more rapidly and thus banish them from the face of the earth. Sometimes history is really unjust. Men know that, but one cannot act differently. We respect and honor Marx and Trotsky and other obscure friends of the Jewish race. Some very beautiful flowers grow isolated on dunghills, but on the whole, The Jewish people has become a pile of capitalist shit. That's the end of the piece, and it was just as horrific and disgusting as you thought it might be, or I thought it might be. So thanks for listening to that. Um, uh, yeah.